Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We will start this session with the video by the Indonesian NOC. Do we have the video?
Yes.
Bangun ekonomi melawan dominasi kapitalisme atasi virus agar solidaritas rakyat.
Hello, friends. Welcome back, everyone. It's really a pleasure to have you here for the very last session of AEPF 13. My name is Felix Andal. I'm from Asian House. And together with Rahmi, I will moderate this session.
Yes, thank you, Felix. We are really happy to have you all that have been joining since the beginning until our last session now. So the spirit of resistance still surrounds us all now. Finally, we are at the final and the most important event of AEPF 13. In the sessions, we will have the AEPF 13 online rally after 8 days of dialogue, consolidations, workshop, and perhaps formulating strategies for Asian European social movements in promoting more just, peaceful, and sustainable social change. And the Asia-Europe People's Forum has been implemented in collaborations with all members of the International Organizing Committee of AEPF. There are 11-11-11 coalitions in Belgium, Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development, APMDD, Philippines, Attack France, Ecologistas in Action, Spain, Focus on the Global South Asia, Fresh Eyes UK, Global Justice Indonesia, Global Justice Now UK, Global Social Justice Belgium, Institute for Popular Democracy Philippines, Mongolia AEPF Committee, Monitoring Sustainability of Globalization's Malaysia, Stiftung Asian House Germany, Transnational Institute the Netherlands, and Vietnam Peace and Development Foundations. And also of active participations from the National Organizing Committee.
So I want to be honest with you. When we planned what to do instead of the real AEPF in Jakarta, which was only a replacement for the original one that should have been in Cambodia, I was very skeptical. Indeed, I told my friends that such an event cannot be done over the internet. It will be annoying, it will be boring, nobody will join. And the last week was really the opposite. We've had amazing participation from with people from over 45 countries in Asia and Europe, joining us in over 40 sessions. And each day we had a wonderful plenary session with amazing insights, thousands of viewers actually. We had sessions organized by the clusters around AEPF, and all of them were just amazing. And the diversity was mind-blowing to me personally. And that said, I really changed my mind about what is possible over the internet. And all these inspirational speakers brought ideas from people all over Asia and Europe. Specifically, I want to stress, we also managed increasingly to involve people from Eastern Europe, which was really a weakness in earlier years. So that's amazing, I think. And now in this rally, once again, we will hear people's voices for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. And these voices will become our actions and solidarity to all people's movements who are in this fight wherever they are. So welcome again. And we don't only have activists from international, national, and grassroots levels. We also have music videos from progressive musicians like Bong Ramilo, art collective of progressive artists in Asia, music video from Lal Band in Pakistan, and a music video from the Village Idiots in the Philippines.
Yeah, so, and for all participants, please feel free to use the chat box, yeah, to introduce yourself, your organizations, and where you are joining from. Also put your comments as we go along. Keep your comments and feedbacks, yeah. And we also have translations from English to Bahasa Indonesia to Khmer and Spain, I think. We are also being streamed live on Facebook, and all sessions of AEPF 13 will be recorded and made available on the AEPF website. So we started. We have many people to speak. So I would like to remind all speakers that they only have 3 minutes. Please make very short your interventions, yeah, for the short rally speeches. So for the first speaker, I would like to invite my comrades from Indonesia National Organizing Committee, Gunawan. He will speak about the People's Agenda from Indonesia. Please, Gunawan, I hope you already here. The floor is yours. Gunawan, we cannot hear you. And perhaps can you turn on your video so we can see your face? Gunawan, hello? Hello? Okay, I think if Gunawan...
He's trying to connect. His mic is open and his video, so hopefully.
If Heidi's ready, we could just change the order slightly. And then we'll start with the second speaker and then come back to the Indonesian NOC in a minute. Heidi Chow is a senior campaign and policy manager for Pharma campaign of Global Justice Now and a spokesperson for the People's Vaccine Alliance in the UK. And we're very happy to have you with us to give your short message. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felix and Rakmi. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I feel really honored to be joining such an inspiring lineup of international speakers. And this past 8 days, AEPF 13 has brought together so many different movements and connected up our common struggles. And for me, that's what's made this forum such an exciting space. We will only make gains when we join our struggles and fight to change the underlying economic system that elevates corporate power, shareholder value, and financialization above everything else, even life itself. And we see this really clearly in the scramble for vaccines. Vaccines are one of the key health products to get us out of this pandemic. And so they should have always been designated global public goods. And in a sense, they are already people's vaccines because all of them have had billions of dollars of public funding poured into them. Public funding paid for research and development. Public funding paid for at-risk manufacturing. And governments are even offering corporations indemnity against liability if anything goes wrong. And of course, it is members of the public that put their bodies on the line to test the vaccines for us all. But instead of a people's vaccine, our vaccines have been privatized by a handful of corporations and turned into private assets for profiteering. And pharmaceutical corporations are clinging on to their so-called rights to monopolies. But these intellectual property protections are not inalienable rights. They are only accorded these intellectual property rules because they wrote the rules themselves. And so for the past 2 decades, public health has had to take a back seat, whether it's access to medicines for HIV, cancer, cystic fibrosis. These rules have put monopolies before saving lives. And last week, the People's Vaccine put out some research which showed that the monopoly system has created 9 new billionaires with a combined wealth of $19 billion that could pay for the vaccines of every person in low-income countries. Meanwhile, this very same system is restricting supply, leaving billions of people without access to any doses. But the movement to fight for people's vaccine has also made great strides, and building on the access to medicines movement, the movement has managed to turn the Biden administration to support the intellectual property waiver, which will be a real game changer to move this proposal forward. And we've got over 175 former world leaders and Nobel Prize winners calling for people's vaccines. And we've got academics, experts, unions, parliamentarians on board as well as the voices of affected communities from around the world, such as healthcare workers, COVID survivors, vaccine volunteers, and bringing these voices into spaces of power to confront political leaders with the consequences of their subservience to Big Pharma. And it's not just about intellectual property. We also need to force companies to share their technology and know-how through the World Health Organization. We need to disrupt corporate control on life-saving medicines and vaccines and redistribute power by making demands for public investment to build local and regional production capacity in the global south. We cannot leave a small handful of corporations to decide who lives and who dies. They've had this power for too long, and we need to take public control over medicines now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi. I think it was a very wonderful speech. I think we can go for the next speaker. We are inviting Roland Kulke from Transform Europe, Germany.
Hi everybody. It's wonderful to be with you and to see some familiar faces and a lot not so familiar faces, but I know connected in friendship. So thanks a lot for inviting me here. And but first of all, thanks a lot from Transform Europe to AEPF for this incredible marathon of high-level events. I was very happy last Friday to take part in the event on housing and social justice. And there I saw with my own eyes what AEPF is able to achieve. It was an incredible, inspiring event for me on housing. And I can tell you, your event was unbelievable good, because on the same day, I had a same event on housing for Europe. So we can see how AEPF is taking up the big challenges which involve billions of people. So personally, I would consider Transform Europe, which is a network of 39 organizations in Europe, not only EU countries, but also beyond the EU, so European network. And we have more than 20 organizations. 39 organizations, 22 countries. So I would consider our network as one branch of the much bigger AEPF network. So congratulations from our side to this wonderful achievement. I personally join the work of AEPF since many years, and I can see this growing and immensely important network, because the AEPF is the only able network on a permanent basis with trust between actors on very different levels: public intellectuals, trade unionists, civil society actors from the ground, but also parliamentarians who work on a constant basis. So this is what Heidi so rightly stated with the example of the vaccination. It's just one example where we have to fight and how to say, trust us. I see Tom already here. Trust the comrades and people from Europe that we will fight for just access to goods which should be public good. And this is not only vaccination. This is now the current thing, but it's also about militarization, authoritarian regimes in our both continents, growing and growing. So I need to stop. I know I would like to say much more. Thanks a lot from your side. Thanks for all the participation and the organizers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. I have to say, Roland Kulke, without knowing, he's the first speaker ever heard in an AEPF context. Because when I went to Nepal for the first time to an AEPF event, he was the speaker when I dropped into the room. So good to see you again, Roland. We'll now try to have Gunawan again. Maybe your mic didn't work before, so let's give it another try. He's the speaker from the National Organizing Committee in Indonesia, from Indonesia Human Rights for Social Justice. So Bung Gunawan.
Hello, greetings everybody.
Salam.
Salam. My name is Christian Panjaitan. I'm representing Mr. Gunawan for this speech. So, okay, let's start. We are representing Indonesia NOC for IPF. We are from Indonesian Human Rights Committee for Social Justice. My sound is clear? Sorry.
Yes, perfect.
And okay.
Yes.
And okay, and I'm a member of Indonesian NOC. On behalf of NOC Indonesia, we will present our statement on People's Agenda. The Indonesian civil society movement, as a part of the IPF National Organizing Committee, have been actively involving in the IPF 13 by holding a people movement dialogue to respond to the global multidimensional crisis, COVID-19 and change in the New World Order on May 18 and 20, 2021. There were two main issues of the discussion. First, the agenda for a just transition, and second, local initiatives against the domination of the capital economy. We consider the domination of capitalism once again has been used to respond to the multidimensional crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic. This has exacerbated inequality, poverty, and injustice in people's lives. For example, business approach in the handling the COVID-19 has impacted the inequality in access to health and vaccines. Development agenda based on extractive and exploitative economies has created the environmental crisis. Strengthening economic liberalization through free trade agreement, expansion and the omnibus law has been legitimized corporate monopoly rights, digital technology and data monopolies, and the democratic crisis through repressiveness and criminalization. At the same time, the development version of capitalism and neoliberalism does not have a paradigm of social justice, gender justice, agrarian justice, and climate justice. For that, we need a tremendous breakthrough. Change that cannot be done in the usual way as before at the national, regional, and international levels. The new normal is an effort to reform the old system into the new system that puts the people first, not recycling the old system that is outdated. Development the priorities that role of the community does not have a characteristic that exploit humans and natural resources without restrictions. It stands on the foundation of mutual cooperation and justice and the sustainability of natural resources. This is a development model that is the antithesis of capitalism model of development. For this reason, taking the momentum of AEPF 13, the Indonesia NOC demands Asian and European countries to immediately stop the monopoly and economic domination of the North over Southern countries that supported by corporate monopoly power by immediately. 1. Implementing TRIPS TRIPS waiver now without exception to address inequality in access to a vaccine and medicine that needed during the pandemic. 2. Revoking the Omnibus Law to end extractive and exploitative development. 3. Urging the responsibility of the northern countries to open up equitable access to environmentally friendly economic sources, such as technology transfers, equitable green economy, and strengthen economic actors in the role of the community. 4. Actualize GAMESTA or Universal Basic Income. 5. Stop the ratification of free trade agreements that strengthen corporate monopolies and exacerbate climate change, which has a broad impact on the sustainability of people's lives. 6. Implementing the new social contract immediately. 7. Stop all forms of imperialism and colonialism, especially the situation that occurred in Palestine and Myanmar. The Indonesia NOC also invite the ASEAN European civil society movement to 1. Develop a joint advocacy agenda to uphold justice for victims who are facing all forms of human rights violation, violence, and discrimination from the corporate business practice legitimized by the state. 2. Building independency through economic solidarity in the form of workers' cooperative or communities covering, structure the production base, distribution, and consumption. 3. Encourage stronger the solidarity action with the people of Myanmar and Palestine to stop all forms imperialism and colonialism through the state extraterritorial obligation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your interventions. And for the next speaker, I would like to invite Jenny Ricks from Global Convenor of Fighting Inequality Alliance. Please, Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rashmi, and hi, everyone. So great to be here, and solidarity greetings from the Fight Inequality Alliance. This is my first time speaking at an AEPF event, but I feel like I'm already part of the family because so many members of the Fight Inequality Alliance have been a part of AEPF since the beginning. And I think that's because we share a lot of the same underlying analysis about the structural causes of the problems and the crises that we face. Inequality itself is very multidimensional. It's a crisis of gender, it's a crisis of climate, it's a crisis of the neoliberal system that our societies are built on. So the kind of solidarity and cross-movement work nationally and regionally that AEPF does is very much the model we have globally in the Fight Inequality Alliance. And what's been exciting to watch this week is people discussing, sharing the experiences and the struggles they have had during COVID-19 and planning the way forward. We have seen during the COVID-19 pandemic that inequality has been supercharged in every single country around the world. It has exacerbated and very much laid bare what was an existing crisis that people have been living for decades and for centuries. But during COVID-19, I think many more people in our societies realize that we have reached a completely unsustainable point. And civic freedoms and authoritarianism have also been on the rise in this period. And it means we're now at a point where we're facing the biggest single rise in inequality in history, as the recession that COVID-19 has also generated begins to unfold around the world. We are facing an enormous impact from COVID-19. People across our movement and in our societies have been experiencing it in their everyday lives. Who has access to healthcare, education, to water, to food, to a livelihood, who lives and dies in our societies has been very stark and laid bare under COVID-19. But it's been great to see people discussing the ways forward from these intersecting crises that we're facing. And we've seen, as other speakers have said, that people's solidarity across movements has been growing despite and because of these intensifying crises. We've seen very inspiring levels of solidarity at a community level, where people have been relying on each other and understanding the deep interconnections that we have to get through a crisis like this, but also extending that international solidarity, whether it's Myanmar, whether it's Palestine, whether it's calling out police brutality, the End SARS movement in Nigeria. There has been, and Heidi's spoken about the People's Vaccine Campaign, there has been an intensifying of national and local, but also global solidarity and internationalism, which is such an important antidote, a necessary antidote for the systemic crises that we face. And we, as the Fight Inequality Alliance, have seen many of the same solutions that other speakers have already mentioned as being the building blocks to the new system, the new economic system that we need to create in our societies. And that's why we've joined hands with others to fight for a people's vaccine, to fight for debt cancellation, to reject the austerity measures that the international financial institutions and our own national governments are hell-bent on pushing on our economies in this period. Fighting for social protection systems and universal basic income, for jobs plans from our governments, for a Green New Deal, for wealth taxes, for women's paid and unpaid care work to be recognized and rewarded and redistributed. Some of the key demands and battles that we have ongoing over this coming period. And I think, and the note that I will leave this on is that the inspiration that I take away from this week and for the struggles ahead is that it is that intensifying cross-movement, cross-sector solidarity that we're seeing is the solution to these problems. Our organizing, our action over the coming period is the solution to these problems, because whilst these crises have been intensifying, it's creating reactions. Our governments are being forced to react in ways that they probably didn't want to and didn't expect to. And now it's up to us to take some of those shifts and to drive radical changes. So thank you so much for this week. Solidarity to you all, and onwards together in the struggle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for this pertinent contribution. I think anyone who has been part of APF could not go back to listening to the radio in the morning and hearing those national figures about vaccination progress and think this is complete madness. Comparing the countries in the race to get more vaccines, I think we here in APF have really shown over the last week that we need to come together over this and fight for vaccine equality and healthcare equality overall. Thank you very much, Jenny, for bringing this message across. And our next speaker is Joel Rocamora from the Institute for Popular Democracy and for the former secretary of the Philippine Anti-Poverty Commission. So Joel, please, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, a hearty congratulations for this amazing, I don't know what to call it. It's not a conference, it's not a convention, it's this amazing event that you all have organized. I mean, more than 40 panels with participants from 45 different countries. I don't know of any other event that can match the breadth and depth of the discussions that AEPF has managed to organize. I'm also happy that that AEPF has made it a point to involve parliamentarians. I'm particularly interested in their participation because in my own life, I work with an NGO that mainly works with urban poor housing and services, but I'm also involved in a political party and the Akbayan, whose main purpose is to win state power. It's important, I think, to remember this because while I believe the strength of the organizations participating within AEPF is precisely their grassroots. A lot of these organizations are grassroots organizations dealing with the day-to-day lives of people and their problems. But what this pandemic has done is challenged everybody, not just us who have been thinking about these issues already before, but it's challenged everybody to rethink how our societies work. There's no old normal to go back to. We all have to work on creating a new normal, and it has to be a radical new normal. This can only be done not just by piecing together all of the work that we all do already, but by how should I put it? By seizing the state, taking the state away from the hands of those who exploit and oppress our people. I think it was Arundhati Roy who said that this pandemic is like a portal. It's a gate that we all have to pass through to go to a new normal. And it's a challenge for us. And while I don't want people to leave the work that they're doing with grassroots work with the sectors and so on, to understand and to hopefully link up with organizations such as Akbayan and the DAP, for example, in Malaysia, or the Nasdem party in Indonesia, to think about taking over state power, because it's only with state power that we can really create a completely new society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel, for your inspiration speeches. I think I agree. We all agree with you that we should create a new normal, that really radical new normal. And then this is our time, for the changes, the real changes that we are need to push through. And I think before we continue to other speakers, at least to refresh our spirit and to refresh again, our mood, for the next speakers. We can start to listen a good music, videos from Bong Ramilo. He is art collective of progressive artists in Asia. I think we can also have more inspirations from these videos, from these music videos. So please, to Katie and Tabi, perhaps we can show the music video from Bong Ramilo. Thank you.
Greetings to the participants of the Asia-Europe People's Forum.
Sorry, I will share it in a second.
No rush.
I forgot to turn on the sound. It will come in a second.
The sound was there though.
Greetings to the participants of the Asia-Europe People's Forum. The words of Pastor Martin Niemöller against the Nazis in 1930s Germany ring true today. I wrote this song in 2018, translating his verses and adding one of my own against the Duterte regime's murderous campaign of extrajudicial killings and other violence against dissent and activism in the Philippines. In this recording, I sing with fellow activists and musicians from Asia, and comrades in the Philippines made the video of this song. The words continue to remind us that we need to speak out against injustice in the Philippines, Myanmar, Palestine, and around the world.
I will now share the video.
Dinampot ang mga komunista at di ako tumutol dahil di ako komunista.
First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out. Because I was not a communist.
Sunod nilang dinampot ang mga unionista at di ako tumutol dahil di ako unionista.
Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist.
Sunod nilang dinampot ang mga Hudyo at di ako tumutol dahil di ako Hudyo.
Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew.
Sunod nilang dinampot ang mga Muslim at di ako tumutol dahil di ako Muslim.
Then they came for the Muslims, and I did not speak out because I was not a Muslim.
Sunod nilang dinampot ay ako, at wala nang tumutol, wala nang natira.
Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Okay, I was told by the organizing committee that I should have an upbeat tone, which is hard after this video, but the whole enterprise is about cheering us up and bringing us together and generating hope through that. So having said that, I'll just relegate this task to our next speaker, who is Vidya Dinker, from India's Social Action Forum, also GrowthWatch India, and the Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development. Vidya, we're very happy to have you with us. And here are your couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. I speak from an India struggling through the pain of a pandemic, aggravated by, as you all know, our government's numerous omissions and commissions. I speak to you from an India where those who toil to keep us fed have been trying in vain to get the powerful elite in our government and in corporates to just listen to them. It's been 6 whole months of difficult cold and heat that our farmers have been protesting through on the borders of our capital city. And today, our government still only treats them as a blooming nuisance, to be sent home or incarcerated using the excuse of the pandemic, and will not at least pause or stay the 3 unacceptable farm laws. From my place in the world, therefore, the solidarity offered by the Asia-Europe Forum, the Asia-Europe People's Forum, this week, this online meeting of minds and hearts, that is AEPF 13, is a solidarity that we really direly need, a reaching out between the global south and the north that is our hope of a shared tomorrow that will be much better than our today. Why do so many across continents persevere, even as we are aware, deeply aware that this present pandemic is just another blip in the enduring pandemic of injustice, oppression, and inequity that is constantly really at us? Because we think and we believe that transformational change is possible. And as we committed just earlier today, each of you and I, we committed to fight the good fight, to bring about that change that is real, not limited to international pledges or treaties or documents, but grounded and real change that our communities can really live and revel in. For this, the global north needs to do much more. much, much more. The financialization of our natural resources cannot continue. The financing of pollution and fossil fuels must stop. And really the happy days of overconsumption must end now. And as emissions must stop, ecological reparations must really flow. Otherwise, real justice cannot come. True sustainability can never be achieved. And an inclusive and peaceful world will be, well, just a pipe dream. Asia and Europe may have differing rhythms and ways, but most of us here at AEPF are doer dreamers, right? We shall persevere to find that common beat, a reverberation, maybe even a song that safeguards just access for all, keeps corporations in their blooming place, and transforms, really transforms what we know as a terribly failed system to one that works for all life and for our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya, for your contributions and our solidarity for our comrades in India in these difficult times. And for the next speaker, I would like to invite Cuong from Vietnam, yeah, Cuong Dong Hue from Vietnam Peace and Development Foundation. Please, Cuong, your time is yours for the 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you very much, dear comrade and friends. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak at the very last event of the AEPF 13. 25 years have passed with 13 forums, 13 big gathering of Euro-Asian people organization. Together, we have experienced ups and downs, and today we are proud to be here in solidarity in our struggle for an alternative paradigm that puts people at the center of the development, a people-centered approach to regional integration, and just multipolar without hegemony. I myself have been engaged in the AEPF in four AEPFs as a member of the International Organizing Committee and coordinator of the Peace and Security Cluster. It has really brought me a wonderful feeling that I'm part of the family. And I have been inspired a lot by the International Organizing Committee member, by all cluster coordinator and all friends who have been part of the forum. This world is still confronted with various problems: inequality, injustice, unsustainable development, the climate crisis, attacks on civilian hegemony, increasing competition between major power, armed races, especially the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. But we have proved our vitality with a fruitful, great forum with more than 40 events, the participation of thousands of people from 45 countries, and many of them joined the forum for the first time. I think that we have really united people. We have really created a forum, a platform for people from not only Asia and Europe, but the world over, together to raise their voices. And I do hope that with our great effort, with international solidarity, we will be able to make greater contribution to building a just, peaceful, sustainable world. A world me and my friend at the Peace and Security Cluster will never have to talk about the abolition of nuclear weapons. We will have never to talk about major power rivalry. We will have never to talk about tension in the South China Sea or East China Sea, and we will have never to talk about attacks on civilians. And I really look forward to the day we, the activists, are made redundant. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Cuong, for this inspirational look into a future that we all hope to see at one point. I'm now looking forward to introduce our next speaker, Paloma Chen. She's the communications officer of the Transnational Migrant Platform Europe, TMP-E. She's a Chinese Spanish activist on racism and the rights of migrants and refugee peoples, and a poet. So now she will share a short poem on behalf of the TMP-E and the working group mobilization. Thank you very much, Paloma. We're looking forward to see you.
Hello, everyone. I feel really, really grateful for inviting me to join wonderful closing. Yeah, as have presented already, I'm the social media manager of TMP, Transnational Migrant Platform Europe. I also participate in the European Mobilization Working Group of the Permanent People's Tribunal. And I really want to invite everyone, all the networks of the AEPF, to join our campaign of Global Pact of Solidarity. Our message basically is that migrant and refugee people's lives matter, that Black people's lives matter, and that we are all migrants and refugees. It is not a crime to migrate or seek refuge. It is a human right. I'm going to share the information in the chat, the website of the TMP, with all the information about how to join this Global Pact of Solidarity. And yeah, basically we are calling global solidarity for migrants and refugees. And I'm going to read a poem about this. And yeah, I basically write in Spanish, but this is a translation, and I hope everyone will like. The title is Obscenity. I am terrified of my migrant parents, always looking to escape. Is this how you solve everything, Dad? Are you going to do again what he says, Mom? I am more terrified of the birth wound that is hidden in the eastern part of here. What was so bad as to leave the there, where one finds oneself at only 20 years old? How did they do it to rebuild themselves, to put themselves back together, to resist? How? To raise an offspring that curses a place it has never visited, that dreams in a language it does not know, that lives in another land that will always be foreign to it. What is good enough to stay? What European dream is it to inhabit this land of white men who pick nipples with chopsticks, colonize bodies, catch Madame Butterflies, trade in opium and blood? White men who name as science Eurocentrism, who name as entrepreneurship vandalism, who name as civilization occupation. White men who walk on paths 1,000 times trodden by my ancestors, dreamers of colonial conquest under the nickname of citizens of the world. This is not my dream. My dream is to be the blood that flows from the migratory wound, the Valencian queen of gunpowder blessed by my ancestors. My dream is not to be separated from my father and my mother, in a line for foreigners and another line for Europeans, that we board the same plane, that we fly together where passports are an obscenity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paloma. We're really privileged to have you as a speaker here. Very moving, And we hope to see you again at the next APF happening. So having said that, we're now moving to the next speaker from the Philippines, John Lazaro. He's of SPARC, the Association of Progressive Youth in the Philippines. John is actually a political science student at the national coordinator of the Association of Progressive Youth, a socialist youth mass organization resisting the rising authoritarianism in the Philippines. Their advocacy places special emphasis on the right to education and the LGBTQI struggles. Like many in his generation, John's involvement with progressive mass movements began with the Duterte administration, when it ran through a decision to inter former dictator Ferdinand Marcos at a prominent state memorial cemetery, despite massive protests. So John, we're really happy to have you with us. Please join us.
Thank you so much, Felix. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to all, wherever you guys are. I'm John, as Felix said, from the Philippines. This year's AEPF has been groundbreaking, in my opinion, not only because of the usage of new media for its hosting, but more importantly, the entry of global youth voices into our discussions here in AEPF. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly exacerbated trends in inequality. Millions all over the world have lost their jobs, have seen their incomes crater, have been driven into hunger and insecurity. Millions of students have not been able to continue on with their schooling. The shambling corpse of neoliberalism at this very moment is sustained by, among other things, violence and repression from states and ruling classes everywhere. All these affect us, the youth of the world, not only because we are living and plodding through these unprecedented times, but because what is happening right now shapes the kind of world that we, the youth, will inherit. We do not want a climate crisis. We do not want worsening conditions in labor. We do not want the breakdown of social support systems. We do not want the constriction of democratic spaces and the death by 1,000 cuts of our cherished civil and political rights. We want a different world, one full of justice, peace, and confidence in shared tomorrows. And today we demand it because despite the global situation today, we place great faith in this, that we still have a world to win. Of course, this means long and bitter struggle and years of it, as many more experienced activists and organizers here know. But in a world that is already so bitter, we cannot but pick up your mantle. This generation has a fight in us too. Our commitment as youth within AEPF is deceptively simple. Commit to maintain contact, to collaborate and amplify each other's voices across borders and oceans, and to learn from each other's experiences. All these can serve as a foundation for greater international youth solidarity. For now, our aim is to build trust and familiarity with each other. We are eager, furthermore, to involve ourselves in the work of the People's Forum. Our discussions this year, held under the Participatory Democracy, Reclaiming Rights and Fundamental Freedoms cluster, had focused on identifying spaces for us to push back against the smothering of progressive dissent and alternatives in our campuses. Our shared experiences of violence, both naked and subtle, and inflicted by both state and capital, are not things easily forgotten. I close with this. We will continue to struggle alongside you all in your commitments to greater global solidarity. We shall not be moved. Atin ang bukas. Tomorrow is ours. Thank you so much to you all.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much for the energy that you wired through the internet. And from your contribution from the Philippines, we're swiftly moving to Pakistan. And we're going to see a video of music from the Lal Band, Pakistan.
Sorry, short intervention. We're going to have another video first, Felix.
All right.
Yes, we're going to have a video from the Village Idiots, a band that was set up by activists in Quezon City in the Philippines, which includes Joseph from Focus on the Global South in the Philippines. So I will share that video first. Loudons will come later.
Thank you, Kathy.
Pagkatapos nito, babalik lang ba tayo sa normal? Sa mabilis na takbo ng buhay, araw-araw ay sugal. Silang panalo, tayo ang talunan, sa araw-araw na pakikipagsapalaran. Yan ba ang babalikan pagkatapos nito? Yan ba ang babalikan pagkatapos nito? Pagkatapos nito, balik lang ba sa dating gawin? Sa marahas na takbo ng buhay, puno ng takot at pangamba, ligalig-ang laking kaulayaw, mula umaga hanggang gabi. Yan ba ang haharapin pagkatapos nito? Yan ba ang haharapin pagkatapos nito? Pagkatapos nito, may bago tayong lakas. Sama-sama nating tahakin ang ating landas. Iwawas ko ang liko-likong daan, isisigaw ang ating panawagan. Mas maayos na lipunan pagkatapos nito. Mas maayos na lipunan pagkatapos nito. Alam na natin ang dapat na gawin. Kailangan dapat na baguhin. Anong uunahin, kailan sisimulan? Pag-ising natin, kinabukasan, pagbangon natin pagkatapos nito. Pagbangon natin pagkatapos nito. Babangon tayo pagkatapos nito. Babangon tayo pagkatapos ahas nito.
Yeah, it was a good from Village Idiots. We know that Joseph Puriganan is the guitarist and also the vocal for the Village Idiots band. Joseph is part of the IEPF as the International Organizing Committee from Focus on the Global South. Actually, I'm of Village Idiots because I remember when we had a meeting in Bali on the IMF and World Bank conference at the time. They created a song for our campaign at the time with the title "The World Beyond Banks." It was a great song. I hope next time we can play that video. Okay, so for the next speaker, I think I know that we don't have any subtitles, but I can feel that the song itself tried to inspire us or to give us a story about the situations during this pandemic. So yeah, for the next speaker.
Can I introduce the song, please?
Who?
Can I introduce the song, the Lal Band?
No,
no, that's later, Farouk. Farouk, that's later.
Okay.
Now we can start another speakers. Then we can have Lal from Pakistan. Of course, it will be very fantastic to hear in these sessions. Okay, for the next speaker, I would like to invite Ibu Sutanudjaja, the co-founder and executive director of Rujak, Center for Studies in Jakarta, a non-profit think tank promoting co-productions of sustainable urban regional development. So please, Elisa, your time is.
Thank you, Ibu Rahmi. Good evening from Jakarta. Thank you for allowing me to speak in this important forum. So I will be speaking about adequate housing. Adequate housing is an essential precondition for a decent life. We all agree on that. Last year, due to the pandemic, many governments requested people to stay home to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Once again, we are reminded that adequate housing is our frontline defense against the pandemic. And suddenly home increasingly has become a life and death situation. Never before, both regions, Asia and Europeans majority, share common struggle in achieving and fulfilling the right to adequate housing for all. We have rental struggles in Berlin and countless forced eviction from Karachi, Phnom Penh to Jakarta. We saw rising numbers of unhoused people, homeless people in London to Tokyo. We saw systemic attacks on decent housing through financialization, speculation, and forced evictions. Last week, the Social Justice Cluster of the IEPF had initiated a new IEPF campaign for adequate housing, public services, and sustainable habitat in Asia and Europe. More than 30 representatives of networks and organizations also attended and supported this initiative. We also plan to build a network in Asia and launch a joint campaign in Asia as well, since it's such an urgent issue here. So now it's a perfect momentum for regional and global solidarity to overcome our housing struggles and crises. It's time to reclaim housing as commons and people solutions as a way to move forward. Let's build better homes and a just world together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Just yesterday, I joined a demonstration here in Berlin with 5,000 other people for decent housing and actually for socializing the big housing districts. So we're in this struggle, at least we're together. For the next speaker, I want to introduce Bablu Longton Dion, human rights activist, working on the issue of migrants and refugee peoples in the northeastern region of India, bordering Myanmar. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. My apologies to friends because my electricity had just gone. So I'm doing this talk through my phone with a backup battery. This is the reality in which we live in this situation. I would like to basically draw the attention of the AEPF. Again, this is my first AEPF and I'm quite fascinated by, again, the length and depth of the discussions here. I would like to draw the attention to the plight of thousands of fresh Myanmar refugees who have entered the borders of India following the recent crackdown on the pro-democracy movement following the coup d'etat of February 2021. Large number of people have moved into this western border, but the problem is northeast India, which basically share 1,500 kilometer border with Myanmar, is also in a very isolated situation where no humanitarian agency, international humanitarian agency, whether it's UNHCR or ICRC, cannot function for historical reasons. It's also already a very highly militarized area. And the government of India, unlike in the earlier times of 8888, where it was much more friendly to the people, the democratic struggle, now have taken a very hard stand. On the 10th of March, the government of India have come out with a notification basically asking all the northeastern states to sanitize all law enforcement and intelligence agency by taking prompt step in identifying the illegal immigrants, that's the word that is being used for this desperate people, and initiate the deportation process expeditiously and without delay. This has led to a very hostile policy towards the refugee who are fleeing from the very severe crackdown. So this thousands of people, according to the UNHCR estimate, this fresh refugee would constitute about 8,000 people now, are squeezed between a totally brutal military on the Myanmar side and a completely insensitive military apparatus on the side of India. Interestingly, though, some of the local government, most of the refugees entered through Mizoram and Manipur, and the Mizoram government have taken a position which is contrary to the central government's position, saying that they are ethnic cousins and they would give shelter and fooding, and so they have literally defied the order of the central government. So the people in Myanmar could empathize with the suffering of the fleeing Myanmari refugees, particularly of the Chin community, which are very close to the Mizo community. Whereas in the state of Manipur, initially the government also towed the central government line and have instructed the administration and the civil society not to open any camp. But there was a huge public outcry against this order, and the government have to take a U-turn, and they said they are ready to provide humanitarian assistance. So despite of the government very harsh response, the civil society and the citizens of the region have come together and have given some support, because thousands of these refugees are basically supported by very poor tribes in the border areas. My plea to the Asian Europe People's Forum would be, I think this lack of the recession, the regression of the democratic principles and respect for international law of principle of non-refoulement by the government of India has to be restored. I would be very happy to start an online petition from our side, and if there can be solidarity from the Asia European People's Forum to persuade the government of India, particularly Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to restore the democratic principles and values of India. And interestingly, already the Manipur High Court, in the case of a few journalists from Myanmar, have upheld the principle of non-refoulement should be part of the right to life, which is guaranteed by the Constitution of India. So the jurisprudence is there, but how do we translate this jurisprudence, which is there in the law court, to a larger policy that the government of India follows and continue with its human rights tradition and respect for democratic struggle is a critical issue that I would like to share with this wonderful forum. And we would be needing solidarity of all the movements and the progressive thinkers and politicians to make sure that the plight of this 8,000 people who are stranded between the devil and the deep sea is given a space to come out, and their rights, their basic human rights, are respected, at least in the world's largest democracy.
I think, Rahmi, we continue. It was his last sentence anyway. I think he was about to wrap up.
Yeah, he was disconnected. Yeah, I think we are in solidarity with our friends in Myanmar, and we are really waiting for the petitions. Perhaps you can support and sign the petitions together. Yeah, so for the next speaker, we would like to invite Carlos Marentes, the International Coordinating Committee of La Via Campesina and of the International Collective on Migrations and Wage Workers. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, compañeras y compañeros. I'm joining you from El Paso, Texas, at the United States and Mexico border, where I send you fraternal greetings and my most sincere thanks for inviting me to participate in this closing part of the Asia-Europe People's Forum. My warm thanks to the Transnational Institute, to the Transnational Migrant Platform Europe, focus on the Global South, and to all of you. This is a very important event because of the very difficult times we are living in, with a world turned upside down. The COVID-19 pandemic continues in inexorable course, causing much suffering and deaths everywhere, and at the same time continues to expose the inequality and selfishness of this system, and particularly of the capitalist forces from the north. We cannot accept, for example, that while the rich countries of the north only represent 16% of the world's population, they have appropriated 70% of the vaccines against COVID-19. Countries like United States, Canada, and England have secured vaccines to vaccinate each of their inhabitants several times, while countries like Syria do not even have one doses per inhabitant. We have to work very hard to create a society that is more equitable, more just, less selfish, and where the human rights of everybody are respected, no matter where you came from or where you go, and of course, no matter the color of your skin. This planet is our common home, and we have to protect it, but together with increasingly urgent and necessary efforts to protect human dignity and the lives of the most oppressed and marginalized. And to achieve the society we want for ourselves and our children and the next generations, we need to make women and migrants the protagonists of change, because after all, migration is an act of resistance, an act of defiance to this system that has only brought us devastation and death. In this sense, I would like to congratulate you, because in these 2 days, you have debated, you have listened to testimonies, you have analyzed it, you have reached conclusions. Now your task is to serve as a reference for all of us, for all movements, and for the whole world. Now you have in your hands the initiative to build a global pact of solidarity for the rights of migrants, refugees, and their families, which will lead us to the construction of a movement of movements to articulate from our own places and taking into account our different cultures and particularities, the defense of the human rights and of motherhood. To advance to that different, equitable, just and free of nationalist selfishness society, count on our support and count on the participation of the International Migrant Collective of La Via Campesina. With greetings with much affection and congratulations for all the work you have done for many days, which has inspired me personally and that has inspired many other movements to follow your lead in the protection of the rights of migrants, women, and poor working people of the world. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Carlos. We are slowly moving towards the end of the end, but we have a couple of more highlights for you. And the next one will be Asad Rehman, Director of War on Want and spokesperson of the UK COP26 coalition. You're welcome to give your brief statement.
Thank you, comrades, for this opportunity to join you today. I actually want to start with a quote. Quote, "COVID is exposing fallacies and falsehoods everywhere. The lie that free markets can deliver healthcare for all, the fiction that unpaid care work is not work, the delusion that we live in a post-racist world, the myth that we're in the same boat." These are not the words of a social movement activist, but of the UN Secretary General. So even amongst the elites, there is a recognition that they can no longer pretend that that neoliberalism hasn't taken us to the edge of catastrophe. He could have gone on to add that the claim uttered by the richest countries in the world in the midst of this COVID pandemic, that no one is safe until we're all safe, ring as hollow as their systematic failure to address the multiple crises facing so many people in the global south. Be it response to the COVID pandemic, the ongoing climate crisis, the crisis of economic inequality, and the deliberate impoverishment of so many countries through unjust and unfair neoliberal economic policies, there continues to be an active denial of the universal truth that everyone, simply by being born into our world, has the right to a dignified life. Over the last year, we've seen rich countries throw away their neoliberal economic rulebook that they imposed on others, directly intervening into their own economies to safeguard their citizens and economies, whilst denying those very same tools and the financial means for countries in the global south to do the same. Today's policy agendas in the global north are being shaped around discussions around Build Back Better and visions of Green New Deals that would herald a green transition, we're told, to address both the climate crisis and the crisis of inequality. But it's an agenda that hands even more control to corporate giants. And not only are these inadequate plans limited to the global north, but they're all prefaced on the same model of extraction of resources, exploitation and prioritization of capital accumulation for the richest in the world and the continued sacrifice of the global south. It's led, friends, to a world of violent contrasts: colossal wealth and immense poverty, chronic hunger and plentiful food, a failed capitalist system, yet abundant possibilities of alternatives. Just last month, the current policies in place were assessed, and despite all of the empty promises made at countless summits of leaders, of those most responsible for causing the climate crisis, we are still headed to a warming of the planet of at least 2.9 degrees centigrade that threaten the very existence of many in the global south. Rich countries are not only failing to do their fair share, but even those inadequate plans are prefaced around net zero 2050, which bank on unproven, risky, or non-existing technologies and push the need to act on the poorest while giving the rich a license to continue to pollute. We must be clear, for rich countries to do their fair share of effort, they must not only decarbonize by 2030, but must transfer finance and technology to the global south, simply to meet their own mitigation effort, with additional resources needed to meet their obligations for adaptation and for the liabilities of loss and damage. Just in the UK, our studies have shown that the UK would need to be at minus 200% by 2030. It would require a transfer of close to $1 trillion just to meet its own domestic effort. Yet we're still locked into a struggle to even realise the inadequate climate finance promise of 100 billion as new and additional public finance. Contrast that with the 9 trillion that has been unlocked primarily in the global north for their COVID recovery. These financial transfers, as we all know, are not about aid, loans, or charity. They're a legal, moral, and political obligation. We know we're in a decade zero where decisions are being made will determine who lives, who dies, whose lives don't matter, and who is sacrificed in a world driven by deep imbalances of power generated by historic injustice of colonialism and imperialism that mean we're not equal, neither in our exposure to violence, nor injustice, nor in our capacity to address it. But amidst these crises, there also exist visions of hope, calls for a genuine global Green New Deal, one that delivers a fair and equitable justice transformation. Next month, rich countries meet at the G7 summit, and throughout the year at the IMF and World Bank meetings, at the COP26 summit and the WTO summit, they are rewriting the rules for a world of injustice. As the COP26 coalition, we will be mobilizing people, building our collective power in the UK, and standing alongside our movements from across the world to raise the demands of the climate justice movement that we need more than a reduction of emissions, we need a reduction of injustice, and for that we need system change. Thank you.
Thank you, Asad. And I think for the next, we can hear music from Lalban from Pakistan. This Kathy for the music.
Kathy, there's no sound.
Okay, 1 second. I will try something different.
While you're trying, I was informed by our comrade Farouk that Lal Band means a red band, and they're singing a famous revolutionary poem written by Faiz Ahmad Faiz, Lenin Award winner poet of Pakistan.
Okay, there is a problem with my audio, and at this point I can only share the sounds. I'm not sure if that is something we would like, and then have people on the screen with their faces. It's up to you, Felix.
In that case, I think we will move on. And then in the very end, we wanted to ask everyone to share their screen anyway, so that we see with whom we're talking. So then we'll have now 2 more speakers, and after that, collectively listen to the song. In that case, I will now give the floor to Joshua Mata, who is the General Secretary of the Centro Trade Union Federation in the Philippines.
Good evening, everyone, and good morning or good afternoon. All throughout the week, we've heard again and again 2 simple facts. 1, that the existing systems have all failed. 2, that there is no other choice for us but to build a better world. I have always believed that socialism and feminism is far more superior than what capitalism and patriarchy can offer. But building a more egalitarian society has to be done in all levels, local, national, and global. And here lies our biggest challenge. How do we actually build movements that are truly based on people's capacity for collective power. Nowhere is this challenge more acute than in the global trade union movement, to which I belong and my organization belongs. It remains one of the biggest movements in the world, and in most cases, we have yet to effectively use our main strength to force through radical reforms, and that is our power to strike. To strike that's against the system, a strike that would paralyze the system. I truly believe that if the global labor movement can accomplish, I truly believe that the global labor movement can accomplish more if it would spend more time rebuilding our capacity to strike against the system rather than wasting most of our time asking for a seat at the table to quarrel over the texts of various agreements and that benefits the powerful more than the powerless. But make no mistake, there are no shortcuts. We need to build this kind of power on a day-to-day basis, even for generations to come. And it is in this light that we in Centro commits to join hands with all of you in building such a global movement. So comrades, we'd like to see you in the near future. We'd like to see you in a global strike. Mabuhay.
Thank you, Joshua, for the inspirations speech. For the last speaker, I'd like to invite Tom Kuchas from Ecologistas in Action Spain. Sorry.
Hello to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's really great to see and to meet so many committed activists from the Asia-Europe People's Forum. You did an amazing work. Thank you so much. First of all, solidarity greetings from Madrid, Spain, to the people in Gaza, Palestine, to the people fighting for democracy and freedom in Myanmar, in India with the farmers movement, in the Philippines. And also I would like to connect this Asia-Europe People's Forum to the struggles in Colombia, those days of hard police repression, and also in the fights of the protests in Chile. They are trying to push forward a new constitution and also a new kind of country, a new kind of society. And I also want to say very clearly, I'm speaking you from Madrid, Spain, where we supposedly have a progressive government, but with the same racist and very violent migration policies as the rest of the European Union and the world, where we can see on the daily basis, systematic human rights violation on the southern borders of Spain with Morocco. You may are following what is happening those days in the southern borders. I was very moved by the poem Paloma Chen has just shared with us in this closing session. And just some words. Despite the pandemic, the European Union is pushing for the agenda of commodification, so no change into trade and investment policies. It's more of the same. And as Asad said just some minutes before, it's even more dangerous, it's even more aggressive and militarized corporate agenda the European Union is pushing, both inside the European Union, but also towards Asia and Latin America and Africa. I was asked by Doti Guerrero to say some words on the G7 summit. You know, the G7 invited India, South Korea, Australia in order to isolate China. And those in the months past of the pandemic, we have seen there was a very strong pressure to the former Italian government, from the financial commissioner of the European Union, Gentiloni, to stop the influence of China related to the Belt and Road Initiative. So it seems to me we have very different state capitalism trying to put in competition each other. And the European Union and the US are taking over the pressure and the agenda of the corporate power to those kinds of fora, World Trade Organization, the Climate Summit, but also the G7, which is trying to get new importance since the United Kingdom is not anymore in the European Union and wants to do things without having a consensus on the G7, on the G20 basis with China. But what we can see is that corporate power wants to avoid the Chinese influence, both the state capitalism and the Chinese corporations. And of course, what we have seen in China is human rights violations, censorship, forced labor, but also an evidence in the pandemic that the state control on investment and corporate power can work somehow. And that is what the transnational corporation in the US and Europe may wants to avoid. So at the same time, and with this I want to end, we see the European Union's leaders condemning some of the human rights violation when they occur in China or Russia or Belarus just last night. But when human rights activists, social leaders, indigenous activists, Black people are murdered in Brazil by the Bolsonaro government, or in Colombia by the police repression and the state terrorism, or in Chile, or in the Western Saharan, women are violated by the Moroccan police, then the EU leaders are silenced because it's more important the economic trade and investment agenda, like in relation to Brazil, the EU-Mercosur trade agreement, or so many other economic issues, which are the key axis of the European Union. So that is my message to the Asia-Europe People's Forum. We will continue to struggle to move on, to mobilize against this corporate-driven agenda of the European Union, together with the social movements and the left in Asia. A big hug and solidarity to all the people's movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Rhetorical question, why is APF always late? Because we have so much to say. We are sharing the struggles from 45 countries and more, and that is very hard to be done in 1.5 hours. So we've been struggling with that problem forever. And probably that's just a sign of us still full of inspiration and continuing the struggle together. I continue to like it, and I'm respecting all of you who are still with us on this late afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. But to really end things, at least for APF 13, I would like to ask Brennan from the Transnational Institute and Farooq Tariq from Kisan Ravita in Pakistan to finalize the proceedings for us. It's been a joy. And after these two final contributions, we'll try to do a group picture. So stay with us and put on your video if you want already now. We might be able to also listen to some music in the end. And now, Brid and Farooq, please close the session for us.
Hi, Felix, Dottie, Rakmi, all of us who are here, and those of us who are absent also, and maybe who will catch up later. Felix, I am going to exercise my right to dissent. We will not finalize the AEPF. We are just opening the next new chapter. And I think that that's the reality actually of the APF, which many people have reflected on, those for whom it's the first time, but those for whom it is many times. The APF always outstrips our expectations, always outstrips our expectations. And I think this is because it's very well grounded on the people's struggles in both our regions and their connectivity with the global struggles. I would just like to respond to a request that was put on the chat from Bonjuego, who has been quite an active participant also in the APF, to just have a moment's silence, because we've made lots of noise here today and for the whole week, just a moment's silence to acknowledge the friends, relatives who have died to COVID, to the disappeared who've been in the Mediterranean and the JNC, and those in the deserts and mountains traveling across borders, and especially more recently to all who have died among the Palestinian people.
They want us to this thing. I addressed it.
I believe that the spirit of this moment for Farouk and myself is actually to speak on behalf of the IOC. So I'm speaking here on behalf of TNI and the IOC. And I would very much like to give, in a way to honor and give tribute actually to my colleague, Peach Vervest, who has been, one of the main movers and shakers of the APF from the beginning, but who always likes to stay in the shadows. But Peach is there and has done extraordinary work together with all IOC members and this amazing group of organizations and movements who come together in the IOC. The next point that I would like to raise is the question about, what do we like? The APF generates this energy. It creates and raises storms. And I'm reminded, I mean, in a way, a little bit historically about the first APF, where it was really a big challenge to the Suhartos of Asia at that time to even attempt to hold a People's Forum, an Asia-Europe People's Forum. During that, we also touched on geopolitical questions, on East Timor, on Burma, and on a divided Ireland, and created a huge storm in the media and a big flutter among the governments. Well, we all know that we are back with some of those very central questions at this particular moment in the political calendar. But I would like also to share with you another element that I think has become a tradition in EAPF, and that is to search for our symbols in art and music and in poetry. And I'm reminded of the amazing dance of the Thai activists at the end of the first EAPF, organized by our colleague of that moment, Lek, which brought incredible energy into the room of the closing of the APF. Now, being Irish and being here in Europe, I'm not sure what's the new symbol of the dance for APF. Is it going to be the dance of the Tinikling? Is it going to be the intricate dances across Asia? Or is it going to be a flamenco? Or is it going to be an Irish hornpipe? Or maybe a tango? Because we want to link the struggles that we have in Asia and Europe, not only stronger together, but we also want to link them to the global struggle. And part of that linking, I think, especially for us in Europe, and this has been, I think, reiterated and underlined so strongly during this APF, is the challenge to us in our European territory, in our European national spaces, and in our European region. The paradigm of trade and investment agreements, unequal, unjust, and extractive, that we are imposing on the global South and on Asia, that we are also the outsourcing of security treaties and memoranda and secret arrangements for the militarization of our borders. Also for our role in the global scenario. I mean, until now, the role of the European Union in the WTO-WIVER struggle has been nothing less than outrageous. And I think we have to say this in the strongest possible language with the strongest possible actions, so that without delay, we achieve what is the people's right to an equal access to the vaccine, and also, of course, to the health resources that are held prisoner by the corporate regime of intellectual property rights. So I will come to the last few words to thank everybody in the front stage and the backstage, to especially thank everyone that has worked quite strongly, quite persistently for the last 2 years, and not only on the eve of this AEPF 13, but persistently, and who is now determined to actually go forward to the future that we want to build. And people have put the names on it. We're not afraid anymore to use the R word, that is the radical future, the C word, the people's word, so that we know the direction we are taking. And we also know that it will not be done alone, that we do need the assurance and the commitments that we have heard here to carry forward a new regime, to build it while we are working on it, and to maybe, like Arundhati Roy said at the end of the Mumbai Social Forum, she said, if we listen close enough, we will hear this new world breathing. So let us build together that global pact of solidarity that can transform our people's futures and our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brid. Farouk. You're muted, Farouk.
Thank you, Felix, and thank you, Brid. And thank you all who are still participating in this 8th day of AEPF Social Forum, People's Forum. And this was an unthinkable task. Meeting online has become more and more difficult. But with the day and night work of the 6 clusters of AEPF, who met almost weekly or fortnightly for the last few months to discuss the details of these 8 days, has brought that result, a positive result. AEPF is just bringing the movements together, interlinking them, strengthening them, giving them all sort of help, ideologically and organizationally. It is consolidating them, it is sustaining them. So bringing the movements and the organizations and the trade unions and the different progressive political and social organizations to listen to each other, to discuss with each other, to behave comradely with each other, and to listen patiently the views and strategies which are needed in this bad time which we are going through. This is a bad time for the progressive ideas, but AEPF has attempted to lay down a progressive agenda while democratically discussing all aspects of this progressive people's agenda. I really thank you. I really thank Andy particularly, who has written and discussed and consulted and agreed with everyone on the different aspects of people's agenda that has become a document. And also I like to thank those 10 academics who have written a right to dissent report, and our editor who has who has accumulated all the conclusions of that, and the discussion yesterday, which was the most attended webinar, discussed different aspects of that. We have, during the 8 days, became friends, a family, a close comrades. I'm really happy to see my Indian friends. I can never go there. It's only 20 kilometers from my home. But I can't go to India because of these restrictions. But I see here my friends, my teacher, Achan Vanayak, my friend Vidya, and all my friends from India who are here to listen to us, to tell us what to do, and to discuss with us. And this was the meaning of this. And I'm really happy to listen our East Asian friends and the European friends of their struggle. They are involved every day. We have to fight for people's vaccine for all. We have to fight against inequality. We have to fight against authoritarian states. We have to find the missing persons, and we have to have a genuine people's democracy, a democracy which is fitting for all. And that's what the agenda for People's Forum is. I thank you on behalf of IOC, of AEPF, and this has been one of my most interesting days. For 8 days, listening to different aspects. I never had a chance personally of such a vast variety of different aspects of the social movements to listen every day. And I am sure that it is same the case for all of you. Thank you very much. And I hope that you would be joining one of the 6 clusters, and you would be contacting AEPF, and you would be playing now your role to strengthening a platform that brings Asia and Europe's peoples together. The regimes are always there. They are always together in awesome meetings. They always discuss anti-people's agenda. Here we are to discuss a people's agenda, and hopefully AEPF will play that role. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farouk. There is only one more thing to say. Well, basically 2. One is we will now attempt to make a group picture. You see all those little buttons with people inside. And 2 of those buttons have the name APF 13 crew. That is Kathy and Tabby. And I just wanted to personally say, what you have done during the last days is insane. I'm not sure how you did it. And also Bishnu, behind the scenes, organizing such an event is craziness and madness. And that is true for all of us in the International Organizing Committee, Dottie, Andy, and all the others that you've seen during the last days. It was really great work. And I think so often behind the scenes, Tabby and Kathy, you have saved us from all kinds of embarrassments. So thank you very, very much. And well, thank you also to all the others. And who is taking that picture?
I think we need to take several. Yeah. Because I will go through the different views, the different mirrors, because I cannot have everybody on the screen. There's just too many people, which is a good sign.
So everybody smile for a while.
Yeah. Smile forever.
Thank you so much. Shall we play the song when we end the session? Okay. Well, I hope it works. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Goodbye, everyone.
हम देखेंगे रुई की तरह उड़ जाएंगे हम महबूबों के पाँव तले ये धरती धड़ धड़ धड़केगी और अहले हकम के सर ऊपर जब बिजली कड़कड़ कड़केगी हम देखेंगे लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे हम देखेंगे लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे हम देखेंगे जब अर्ज़े खुदा के काबे से सब बुत उठवाए जाएंगे हम महदे सफा मरदूदे हरम मसनद पे बिठाए जाएंगे सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे सब ताज उछाले जाएंगे लाज